Welcome, friends, to the Ruslan Belov channel. You're watching our daily analytical breakdown of events on the Ukrainian front and across the world's key geopolitical arenas. I'm glad to see each and every one of you, both those who've been with us for a long time and those who've just found the channel. Before we get into it, a quick but important request. YouTube is actively suppressing military analytical content. The algorithm deliberately reduces the reach of videos like ours, pushing them into shadow bans. That means even your subscribers often simply don't see new episodes in their feed. The only guaranteed way to stay informed is to hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button and select all notifications. It takes 10 seconds, but it's what keeps this channel alive and reaching its audience. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. It's free, it matters, and it genuinely helps. Thank you. Now, let's get to work. The global picture, calm before the storm. On the surface, the past 24 hours looked relatively quiet on the world stage. But this kind of stillness often precedes serious developments, and that's worth keeping in mind. The highly publicized talks between Iran and the United States never happened. The Iranian side simply didn't show up. No official explanation has been given, but the political signal is unmistakable. Tehran has no intention of engaging in dialogue under conditions it considers unacceptable. The negotiations are cancelled, and there are currently no signs that either party is ready for another attempt. We'll return to the Iranian-American confrontation and its Middle Eastern dimension at the end of this episode. The material there is genuinely worth your attention. As for the Russia-Ukraine diplomatic track, it barely registered today. The peace process remains effectively frozen, with no real signals of any thaw on the horizon. On the front lines, however, the picture is very different. Russia prepares for the summer campaign. What it actually means. Yesterday, Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Oleksandr Syrsky, made a statement that immediately went viral across Ukrainian media and caused something resembling panic. Syrsky publicly declared that the Russian army is actively preparing a new large-scale offensive. He cited the regrouping of several Russian units and the redeployment of reserves to key directions as evidence. Frankly, if this is cause for panic, it's very late panic. Information about the concentration of forces on the Zaporizhzhia direction appeared in open sources roughly a week and a half ago, and there was nothing particularly secret about it. Reports at the time indicated that approximately 20,000 troops had been transferred to the Zaporizhzhia sector. A critically important detail, these are not forces pulled from other front sectors at the expense of other directions. These are fresh troops, trained and deployed here deliberately. On top of that, at least 5 fresh brigades are already concentrated on the Zaporizhzhia direction. All of this points to one conclusion. Preparation for the summer offensive campaign is in full swing. Today we'll break it down direction by direction, what objectives the Russian army is facing, what can be counted as success by the end of the season, and what would constitute failure. No illusions, no hollow optimism, just cold military analytical thinking. Zaporizhzhia direction. The main prize and the main obstacle. We start with Zaporizhzhia Oblast, and for good reason. Significant forces are being concentrated here on both sides, and this is where one of the defining battles of the coming months will likely unfold. Let's be direct about what would constitute success for the Russian army on this direction by the end of the summer campaign, the capture of Orikhiv. Without it, any further advance toward the city of Zaporizhzhia is simply not going to happen. Orikhiv is not just a settlement, it's a powerful defensive stronghold that effectively blocks the northern axis of advance. As long as Ukrainian forces hold this fortified area, the road to Zaporizhzhia remains shut. Now the key question, why is this so difficult? Because the Russian army reached Orikhiv back in the spring of 2022. 4 years have passed, 4 years of fighting, resources and losses, and Orikhiv is still held by the Ukrainian side. That alone speaks to just how seriously fortified this defensive node is. That said, the situation today does not look like a stalemate. The eastern grouping is currently conducting an active assault on the powerful defensive line running through the area of Verkhnya Tersa and Voskresenka. Progress exists, slow but steady. According to available information, Russian forces have already firmly established themselves in Verkhnya Tersa and should soon push the enemy out of this strongpoint entirely. That leaves Voskresenka, and if it falls, the defensive line here will be fully breached. That opens the road southward, directly toward Orikhiv. Assessment of prospects. The probability that Orikhiv comes under Russian control before mid-September stands at approximately 70 to 75%. Not a guaranteed outcome, but solid odds. If Orikhiv is still held by Ukrainian forces by mid to late September, that will unambiguously constitute a failure of the summer campaign on this direction. Dobropillya direction. Pessimism with good reason. Moving on to the Dobropillya sector. This will be one of the primary directions for the central grouping, and the picture here looks somewhat different. Let's start with what can be stated with confidence. The Russian army will finish off Belitske. The probability is close to 100%, and the time frame, mid-September, is realistic. No particular doubt on that point. Dobropillya itself, however, is a different story. Speaking plainly, there are serious grounds for cautious pessimism. The city is covered from the south by a powerful defensive node that can roughly be described as a triangle of 7 villages. This is a complex, layered defensive position, and the terrain plays a decisive role. In the area of this triangle sits a spoil tip, an artificial hill of mine waste left over from coal extraction. It's an excellent commanding height from which a vast area can be covered by fire, and it multiplies the difficulty of any ground assault manyfold. And that's not all. A second spoil tip sits directly within Dobropillya itself, meaning that when the Russian army enters the city, it will inevitably face yet another heavily fortified node controlling the approach routes. What would count as success on this direction by the end of the summer campaign? The realistic benchmark looks like this. Complete clearance of the 7-village triangle, securing the flanks around Dobropillya, entering the city, and initiating actual urban combat within it. If that result is achieved, it can be called a productive and successful season on this sector. Taking Dobropillya entirely within a single summer campaign is a task that looks unrealistic given current conditions. Kostyantynivka direction, high confidence. The Kostyantynivka sector is one where the forecast can be stated with maximum clarity. Success here means not merely the capture of Kostyantynivka itself, but also taking Alexeyevo-Drushkivka and subsequently pushing out directly toward Drushkivka. However, the realistic ceiling should be defined immediately. Drushkivka will almost certainly not fall within this summer campaign. The city is heavily fortified, and the forces operating on this direction represent only part of the southern grouping. The other part is engaged on the Sloviansk direction. Spreading resources across 2 major urban agglomerations while expecting to take 3 cities in succession during a single operational season is not a realistic expectation. As for Kostyantynivka itself, the forecast here is delivered with confidence. The probability that Kostyantynivka will be fully under Russian control by the end of the summer campaign is estimated at 95%. If that does not happen, it would be a serious failure, but such an outcome is highly unlikely. Sloviansk direction, ahead of schedule. The situation on the Sloviansk direction is interesting. The southern grouping here is moving with a noticeable pace advantage over what was initially expected. That's good news, but it also imposes certain realistic constraints on what can be expected from the summer campaign in this sector. Taking Mykolaiivka within a single summer season is unlikely, but pushing into the city and creating a genuine threat of subsequent encirclement of Sloviansk, that is an achievable objective, and it's precisely this that would be counted as a successful result for this direction. There's a ceiling here. Part of the southern grouping's forces are simultaneously tied up in combat for another major urban agglomeration, and that inevitably limits the operational reach. Lyman sector, one clear criterion. Everything here is stated in the simplest possible terms. Lyman under Russian control by the end of the summer campaign, success. Lyman still held by Ukrainian forces, failure. No shades of grey, no intermediate readings. One criterion, and it is absolute. Kharkiv and Sumy directions, second-tier priorities. Kharkiv and Sumy oblasts are not the main stage for the upcoming summer campaign. Unlike Zaporizhzhia and Donetsk oblasts, where the primary operational effort is concentrated, these two directions remain secondary. Nothing spectacular will unfold here during the summer period. Expectations should be set accordingly. That said, defined objectives exist here as well. On the Kupiansk sector, if the Russian army manages to eliminate the Ukrainian bridgehead on the left bank of the Oskil River, meaning actually bringing Kupiansk, Vuzlovyi, Kostyantynivka and Novusine under control, that would be a highly significant result. This bridgehead has existed for 3.5 years. 3.5 years it has been drawing away forces and resources from the Western grouping, constraining maneuver, demanding constant attention. Eliminating it would free up considerable operational capacity that could then be redirected elsewhere. If the bridgehead cannot be eliminated, the result will have to be recognized as unsatisfactory. On the Sumy direction, the task is straightforward. Enter the Sumy forest and establish a solid foothold there while the green cover lasts. If that is accomplished, excellent, the northern grouping deserves full marks. If not, it's manageable. Sumy Oblast is not a priority at this stage, regardless. Bottom line, what to expect this summer. Let's draw a line under the military analysis. If the Russian army's summer campaign unfolds according to the optimistic scenario, and this, apparently, is precisely what Syrskyi is alarmed about, 4 to 5 cities will come under Russian control. Among them, with a high degree of probability, Kostyantynivka, Lyman, Orikhiv, and several smaller strongpoints across various directions. Of course, reality may diverge from the forecast in either direction. War is not a chess match with guaranteed moves. It may go better, in which case the list of achievements will be longer. It may go worse, in which case some of these objectives will remain out of reach. We'll continue to watch, analyze, and keep you informed. The Middle East, war on pause, or not. Now, the Middle East, the situation there is developing according to a logic that can be summarized as: everyone wants peace, but no one is prepared to accept it on someone else's terms. The central paradox of the moment, the key external players, the United States and China, are objectively interested in pausing the active phase of the conflict. The Trump administration needs a result that can be sold domestically as a victory, even if it's simply a well-packaged draw. Beijing, for its part, has already gotten what it wanted from this crisis, a vivid demonstration of the limits of American military power in restoring a unipolar world order. The cracks in that order have been put on full display, and for China, that's quite enough. A prolonged Middle Eastern war is categorically disadvantageous for Beijing on purely pragmatic grounds. The Chinese economy is extremely sensitive to energy prices, and a sustained regional conflict will inevitably drive them up. The same logic applies to the major regional powers: Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. None of them need a global energy crisis. It would seem, given this picture, that peace should be inevitable, but it isn't. There are two actors who are not prepared to accept peace under current conditions, and their positions determine the actual dynamics. The first is Israel. Tel Aviv has not achieved its core objective, the Iranian regime has not been toppled, and its military and political potential has not been sufficiently degraded. Netanyahu and his inner circle understand perfectly well that leaving Tehran in control of the Strait of Hormuz after everything that has happened would be a strategic catastrophe for Israeli interests for decades to come. That is why Israel will make every possible effort to derail any ceasefire or agreement. The second actor is Iran itself. Tehran does not feel secure, which means it has no incentive to stop. Opening the Strait of Hormuz and abandoning the nuclear program would be perceived by Iranian society, after everything the country has been through, as outright capitulation. No American security guarantees will satisfy or convince Iran. History provides far too many examples of what such guarantees are worth in practice. The terms on which Tehran is willing to negotiate are fundamentally incompatible with what would allow Trump to save face before an American audience. The conclusion: continuation is virtually inevitable. The only question is the form and intensity of the next round. We'll be watching. That's all for today, friends. Thank you to each of you for watching, for analyzing the situation alongside us, and for staying with the channel, especially at a time when content like this is being deliberately buried by the algorithms. Your activity, likes, comments, shares, is what genuinely keeps this channel running. See you in the next episode. Stay sharp. Until then.